Good morning, church. Let's stand as you're able and sing us a song. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Special welcome to Olivia Brownlee, who is filling in as our song leader today. Incredible talent. And you're going to get to hear, as is often the case when Olivia is with us, some of her original songs. And so you'll just be astonished not only by her talent, but her voice talent and her musical talent, but her ability to write songs is really amazing. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, Todd. Pretty good sermons, too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. And I'm blushing. I blush. And of course, we bring you wonderful accompaniment here when you're not accompanying yourself. And we wanted to have the best for your visit with us. So thank you, Jackie. Yes, so welcome everyone to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where we join together to create a nourishing liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we like to say in short around here, create community, find meaning, and live justly or work for justice. Either one work. We didn't want to get into a war or split the church over this, so we just let you say whichever you prefer as true Unitarians. So welcome to each and every one of you. We're so glad to have you. This includes those of you who are in the room with us today, whether you are regular attendees or maybe joining us for the first time visiting. We're glad to have you as well. And of course, the many of you who are live streaming, we're so glad to have all of you as well. So let's see, just a couple of quick announcements. You'll notice that there is a candle on my right that has an actual flame. As I said during the first service, I have trouble distinguishing. I don't know how to talk about this. I don't want to call it a real candle because those are real too, right? They occupy space and are made out of atoms, and they're wax candles, and they generate photons, even though they have batteries. So those are real too. But this one's different because it is the same candle that is used by our partner church in Felșoracos, Romania. And they light one every Sunday as a symbol of our continuing relationship with this congregation there, this community there that we've had since the 1980s, once the Cold War ended. And they sent this to us as a gift, and we thought we would try to light this the first Sunday of each month as a way of remembering them. Otherwise, we will use our magical electric candle. But this is special, and it's in a special place. An artifact that was created by the great Harold Belais, who is no longer with us but was a member of this church. So it's just beautiful, and we thank our friends in Fel Shiracos for thinking us for this gift and for your presence in our lives. So thank you very much. Today is also the beginning of our annual stewardship campaign, or I guess we call it generosity campaign. It's shifted. So our generosity campaign, and it is the time of the year where we ask you to make a pledge to our congregation for the coming year so that we can appropriately budget. That sounds kind of boring, but it is a reality that we have to have a budget and we have to have an idea of about how much income we will have in order to meet those needs. So we thank you in advance for your generosity, and as always, the more the merrier. So I'm going to actually invite Lynn now to say just a little bit more about our generosity campaign. Oh, before you do, I have one more quick announcement. I almost forgot this. This is something from our religious education department that Stephanie handed me. A reminder that on Easter Sunday, April 20th, there's going to be our annual Easter egg hunt, and we need your Easter eggs. Okay, so it says bring eggs filled, the little plastic ones with sweets or treats, to the fellowship hall in between services, between now and then, hopefully, and stay to help hide them if you can. Children will be able to search for them at the end of Children's Chapel. So please keep that in the back of your mind that we need eggs. So not real eggs are too expensive, but the toy eggs.
It is true. Our annual generosity campaign is officially underway. And today, after the second service, as you can tell, our lovely social activities team, Michelle Atwood and Lynn Diddens, are hosting a special luncheon to help us kick things off even further. Lunch is provided, and there is a basket back there where donations will be gladly accepted. Also, next to that basket is a little sign, and thanks to the generosity of Tom and Mary Mosier, every dollar that is placed in that basket today will be matched, and those funds will go directly to our church's operation fund. I have had a couple of questions about that from people from last week who heard this was coming, and they asked how could they contribute if they were not able to attend the luncheon and still make Tom and Mary Mosier have to match their money. And there is a way to do that if you would like to do that and you're not able to attend our luncheon, or if you're watching us from afar today, you can go to our website and click on our donations page, and just when you have a place to put what you're donating for, match the basket or something related to that, and Rebecca will know what that is for. As Todd said, completing our annual pledges, whether we are members or friends or regular visitors, really does help us plan wisely. I'm looking around at all my friends who are board members, and they really love it when those pledges come in, because that helps us look forward to what's coming up in the next fiscal year. It helps them set their priorities, and it definitely helps them look at a balanced budget to present to you, all of us, at our annual meeting that will be coming up in June. And we want our budget always to be able to reflect the values and hopes that we share as a community. And they're also available back by that little treasure box back there with a hole in it, where you can put a hard copy pledge form right into that treasure box. Be sure to stop by and look at the tree that's on the kiosk in our Friendship Hall. It's already beginning to sprout leaves from those pledges that came in earlier this week. And if you turn in your pledge form today, feel free to put a leaf on the tree yourself, or write your initials down somewhere and we'll put one on there for you. And thank you to our RE kiddos from last week who cut out several leaves for us to put up there. And you can also cut out your own if you would prefer to do that. So I'll see you at the luncheon. Thanks.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. I completely forgot where we're at because we switched things up a little bit this morning. But you guys want to greet one another this morning? You feel like getting up and shaking hands and saying hi? Go ahead. I'm going to do it here. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Plenty more opportunity to visit after our service, so please do stay around for that. We're going to move forward now by lighting our chalice, which is the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
As we begin our service this morning and kick off our annual generosity campaign, we invite you to reflect on a simple but meaningful question. What brings you here? It's the theme of our campaign this year, and it's also the title of the beautiful song we're about to hear, written and performed by Sarah Thompson. Let this music be a gift to you, an invitation to remember where we've been together, to dream about where we're going, and to reflect on what brings you here, to this place, to this community, and to this moment.
I remember we met in that valley with mountains all around, and a river flowing gently down. I remember the night we went walking, the stars were shining bright. We were talking long and feeling right. And then when the leaves started falling, yellow carpet on the ground, something was lost and something found. You started asking a lot of questions, and I was slow in answering. You said, what brings you here? What are you dreaming of? Where have you been? Where are you going? then we began on a journey. We traveled down that mountainside, across the land to that eastern ocean tide, and we settled in to that city. As many people as there are stars, some with dreams, some with greed, many with battle scars. And in that place where tall buildings and concrete cover up the ground, some things were lost and some things found. I started asking you some questions. You weren't slow in answering. I said, what brings you here? What are you dreaming of? Where have you been? Where are you going? And then the time came to leave that city and its life behind, letting go of the cruel, holding on to the kind. And we traveled west, traveled north, till we found a healing place by a lake deep and wide as heaven's grace. And the people we met, they were trying to keep soft hearts in a world hard and cold, seeking justice and peace like some seek gold. We keep asking a lot of questions, trying together to find the answers. We say, what brings us here? What are we dreaming of? Look where we've been. Where are we going? I'm so happy we're walking together in the sun and the rain and the snow. And oh, do you know how I love you so? And we're singing, what brings you here, people? What are you dreaming of? Where have you been? Where are you going? What brings you here?
How was that for a kickoff reflection to our annual generosity campaign? Thank you, Lynn, and thanks to the artist for allowing us to use that this morning. We're now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning. And we want to actually begin with a candle celebrating a birthday today. There's Gordon right there. Gordon, happy birthday, sir. Do I get to share your age? 75, yeah. I knew that, but I couldn't believe it when I heard it. I said, there's no way that Gordon is 15 years older than I am. Can't believe it. So happy birthday, and I think we'll maybe sing happy birthday later today. So how's that sound? Also want to kindle candles as we have been on behalf of the people of Ukraine and that region of the world, experiencing the war and devastation that's going on there. As well as the people of Israel and Palestinian people, the people of Gaza that are experiencing the terrible things that are going on there. Despite us having brought this up now every week for years in some cases, well, it has been years in both cases, it just always seems like too little to say on what is a terrible situation for people, and especially now what's going on in Gaza related to our country, what's going on in our country. I mean, it's absolutely terrible. That place was a city, you know, with homes and streets and businesses and jobs and people walking around in sneakers and tennis shoes and shorts, just like everywhere in the world. And it's been leveled. And now it is being occupied and leveled even more. I think in response to the permission that was given by the president of this country, who said, let's remove the Palestinians from this region and turn it into a resort. And this is what we see happening. On top of that, people that are speaking out against what's going on behalf of the plight of the Palestinians in that region, in some cases are being called terrorists and being swept up off of our streets and removed without due process. In addition to a lot of other, violations of our rule of law that are going on. It is absolutely tragic and it's horrific. It is something that as Unitarians violates our most fundamental principles of the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And the fact that we don't see, or some don't see, others as human beings, which is the only means by which it is possible for us to engage in the kind of violence and destruction that is going on in that part of the world. And when we kindle our candles, I think there is a real sense of grief and sadness that a lot of us feel in this world, in this country, certainly all of us in this room. And I wish there was more we could do about it than feel sad and express that sadness together and kindle these candles. But I don't want to just kindle these candles by rote when so much is happening right now without saying something about how troubled and horrified and aggrieved and concerned and all of those fearful, all of those things we're feeling because of what's going on in our world, in part because of the negligence of our own country. So I just lift that up with the candle of concern. It's not much, but it's what we have. And let's as always take a moment of silence on behalf of others that you are thinking of, and you'd be welcome to name them aloud at this time if you wish. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world.
This song is a song I made up that is actually for 3 voices. One of them is me, one of them is my inner pirate, and one of them is my inner housewife. And they are backed up by a 6-piece marching horn band, so just use your imagination.
Creeping down the hall, keeping close to the wall. Hear a floorboard crack and a bobby pin fall. Give it a minute and holding a breath, and you're winking, you're thinking you're cheating on death, and take another step. Get ready for the shitstorm. Let loose, lady, won't you get lit? Maybe say leaving the house isn't leaving the sin. The light blew out when the weather blew in. You wanted bread and I wanted gin, with the wilder the weather on the way. Ooh, where you going? I see you got your stealth on. You're silencing and severing every tie you got. You burning bridges quite a lot. And how do you feel now? Take a bow, you got shot through the eyebrow. Well, leaving the house isn't leaving the sin. The light blew out when the weather blew in. I wanted bread and you wanted gin, with the wilder the weather on the way. Take a break, baby, why you be hating on me? Take a break, baby, why you be hating on me? Take a break, baby, why you be hating on me? You're taking and breaking and faking away. 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 We got a storm on the way. We got a storm on the way. We got a storm on the leaving the house isn't leaving the sin. The light blew out when the weather blew in. You wanted bread and you wanted gin, with the wilder the weather on the leaving the house. It isn't leaving the sin. The light blew out when the weather blew in. I wanted bread and I wanted gin, with the wilder the weather. Do we have to? Yes, we have to stay together with the weather. Ooh, on the way.
Thank you so much. All right, that is very hard to follow that act, I can tell you, but we are going to have our time for all ages. If anybody would like to come to the front of the room. There we go, thank you. It's always good to have company up here. Yay, thank you. As is often the case, I have come with a friend. Yes, this is one of my favorite guests, Mickey Mouse. Howdy, boys and girls, how are ya? You good? Good. Yay, announcement. Oh, are you? What might it be? I want everyone to know that I've decided to resign from Disney and start a new career. Wow, okay, well that is big news. You've been with Disney a very long time, so how did they take the news? Well, I haven't told them yet. You haven't told them? Well, why not? Well, I was hoping you'd do it, Thorny. Well, me? Why me? Well, because I've never quit a job to Thor, and you've had lots of practice. I don't know if I'd put it that way. Well, how many jobs have you had? How many jobs have I had? Let's see. My first job was actually sweeping the entry of a 7-Eleven store when I was 9 years old. That was an early start, that was. And in high school, I worked a year for a delicatessen and then became the janitor for the Westboro Professional Center out in Northern California. And let's see, in college, I worked in HVAC and plumbing at the university, and then I became a member of the grounds crew in seminary where I had lots of fun operating heavy equipment. That's it? Well, pretty much, except for 10 years working in TV news and then 6 years in corporate video production and 25 years in Unitarian ministry. Were you fired from any of those jobs? Well, just one. Then you know how to quit a lot better than I do. Okay. I've had the same job my whole life, and I'm older than you. Well, that is true. So that's why I can't imagine you doing anything else. What is Disney going to be without Mickey Mouse? Well, you can ask him when you tell him I'm quitting. Okay, just what is it you're quitting to do? Well, I'm going to become a computer scientist. A computer scientist. I don't know that I've ever even seen you using a computer. Never touched one. Then why do you want to become a computer scientist? Well, it's my duty. Your duty? Yes, my friend Goofy says computer science is where I'm most needed. Why did Goofy tell you that? Well, he read an article saying that every computer needs a mouse. Yeah, Mickey, it doesn't mean a real mouse. A computer mouse is a handheld hardware device that controls a cursor to help a user interface with text, icons, files, and folders on your computer. What did you just say? Well, I guess what I mean is a computer mouse is a piece of plastic that you move around with your hands. Oh. Yeah, you know, Mickey, maybe you should learn a little more about computers before deciding to quit your job. And you probably should not take any more career advice from Goofy. Well, how about Donald Duck? Well, I think you're a pretty smart mouse, Mickey, and if you're willing to work hard and put your mind to it, you can do anything. And become a computer scientist if you want, but when it comes to your career, whatever you do, I think you should do something that you want to do. Work is a big part of our lives, so it should be something that you enjoy. Geez, well, if you put it that way. Yeah, I've got to put my script up here, Mickey. Hold on. Okay. Well, if you put it that way, I'd rather work at Disney than anywhere else. Well, I'm glad to hear it, because Disney and the rest of the world needs Mickey Mouse, right? Yeah. Well, that means I can keep singing my favorite song. Oh, no, you can't. Do not sing your favorite song. Mickey, you know that I can't sing. Don't worry. I'll do all the singing for you. N-I-C. You really don't have to do that right now. See you real soon. Maybe you should become a computer scientist after all. K-E-Y. I'd be happy to tell Disney you're quitting. Why? Because I like you. Well, you always end on the same note. Help us out here. N-O-U-S-E. Thank you, Mickey. Now we shall sing our children who wish to go out. Out!
As we move into a time of meditation, before we enter into the silence, let us consider this challenge from the Stoic philosopher Epictetus. How long are you going to wait before you demand the best of yourself? This is not a call to self-judgment, but to self-truth, to stop waiting for the right moment, to stop pretending we don't know what needs attention, not perfection, not someone else's version of you, but your best, the honest, courageous, wholehearted self you're capable of being.
I baked you a sorry cake to try to cure my bellyache. I made plenty of mistakes, but my only crime was telling you I'm fine when I was not fine. I made you a sorry blade to try to make my conscience fade. I made plenty of mistakes, but my only crime was telling you I'm fine when I was not fine. All your trouble I will carry if you'll only spare me. All your trouble I will carry. Don't need no shovel, baby. Don't need to bury me. All your trouble I will carry if you'll only spare me. Spare me, spare me.
Thanks again, Olivia. I'm grateful today that I've got to hear you perform your music twice. Got to hear that twice. Beautiful. Thank you. Cypher, you may recall, is a character in the 1999 blockbuster film The Matrix, who has awakened from a false reality to see the world as it truly is, which is pretty dreary and miserable. In the end, he betrays his friends so that he can return to his state of delusion. I know this steak doesn't exist, he tells his subjugators over a virtual meal. I know that when I put it in my mouth, the matrix is telling my brain that it's juicy and delicious. After 9 years, you know what I realize? Ignorance is bliss. I don't want to remember nothing, okay? Get my body back in the power plant, reinsert me into the matrix. In Plato's allegory of the cave, the original Matrix story, prisoners who have been chained within a dark cave for their entire lives without any knowledge of another reality, murder one inmate who has escaped and discovered the real world before returning to lead them out of captivity. It's one matter to deceive others, but to deceive ourselves by intentionally ignoring and resisting what is true and what is real isn't just a betrayal of our friends, as in the Matrix, or the abandonment of our society, as in Plato's allegory. It's self-deception. It's a betrayal of oneself by oneself. Yet how many of us prefer it this way? How many, like the Cypher character in Plato's Prisoners, prefer to live lies rather than truth, or delusions to reality? How many would rather remain blind than to see? We prefer to deceive ourselves because our fantasies, like Cypher's imaginary steak, are easier to swallow, often easier to swallow than reality. Delusion is a psychological coping mechanism, which is why most mental illnesses are dissociative in nature, meaning they enable us to break from reality, to avoid it, to enter the matrix, to stay in the cave, even if it means betraying the truth and attacking the truth tellers. I will submit that most of us prefer lies to the truth much of the time, because life is hard. Deciphering the truth is difficult and uncertain compared to the false certainty and false security of self-deception. Falsehood is easy because it is negatively and positively reinforced by our families, by our friends, by our society. Ascribing to the status quo secures our place among others. It gives us a sense of belonging and reassurances that we will have access to the benefits of society so long as we go along with the crowd. It is the truth tellers, the whistleblowers, those who dare say, "Look, the emperor has no clothes," who are the most likely to find themselves on the outs, silenced, ostracized, unemployable. So the fear of truth isn't entirely unreasonable. There are sound reasons for sometimes keeping our mouths shut. Yet it is one thing to keep what we think to ourselves, and another to deny it even to ourselves. Each of us, according to psychologist Carl Jung, must put on a false face in the world, a psychological state that he called the persona, named after the mask worn by ancient Greek actors. In order to move into the world, he said, we have need of a certain attitude or persona, the mask that we turn toward the world. Jung believed that the persona can be of some social utility, so long as we ourselves don't mistake ourselves for our mask, I should say, for the authentic self behind it. Yet in doing all of their small tasks, he said, most people believe that they are their masks, and thus they become neurotic. That's when our dissociative and delusional states form, when our social masks deceive even ourselves. If I should believe I was exactly what I am doing, it would be a terrible mistake. I would not fit that fellow, Jung said. As soon as I say that I am only playing a role for the time being to please you, I'm all right. Hear that line one more time, if I can find it. As soon as I say that I'm only playing a role for the time being to please you, I am all right. It's necessary to put on a public face, to sometimes hold back our feelings, to keep our thoughts to ourselves, to temper our words, to compromise, so long as we remain honest with ourselves about who we really are, what we truly believe and feel. In other words, don't lie to yourself. On the other hand, sometimes we must be brave enough to reveal our true face. We must risk being ourselves, risk taking a stand, speaking up, and saying what we mean. Knowing when to wear our mask and when to take them off is related to the greatest source of human anxiety, the dilemma between freedom and belonging, between the authentic self and the social self. And it's a chronic source of anxiety and a lifelong balancing act in which we continue to sometimes stumble and fall. And I cannot tell you exactly when to wear your mask and when you should take it off, when to choose freedom rather than belonging. But whether it's on or off, just don't lie to yourself. The bare minimum. Resist the easy way out by going through life ignoring what you deep down believe is true and real, as Cypher does in The Matrix. Escaping from reality is not a healthy means of coping with life's challenges. At its worst, this can lead, as I've suggested, to serious dissociative disorders, causing individuals to actually break from reality. For most of us, however, it means at a minimum being out of integrity with ourselves. It means living a life of self-deception. It means lying to ourselves. This is what makes Cypher such a tragic character, because his name literally suggests his ability to decipher the difference between what's real and what isn't. Yet he consciously chooses to live an unconscious life. Coping with life's pain by denying it is one of the main reasons that we choose, consciously or unconsciously, to deceive ourselves. Another, again, is our need for belonging, our desire for companionship and social security. When it comes to finding acceptance, conformity is almost always an easier path than authenticity. This is why most would choose belonging before their own freedom, like the prisoners in Plato's cave who kill their would-be liberator. Yet there is another, and I believe more pervasive, cause of self-deception that's hardest of all to overcome because it is hardwired into our very neurology, and that is fear. Fear is considered one of our 6 primary emotions, the others being happiness, sadness, anger, disgust, and surprise. But unlike these others, fear actually has a special physical place, a structure in our brains, 2 almond-shaped nuggets called the amygdala that are hardwired to the hippocampus, the area in our temporal lobe responsible for processing our emotions, among other functions. Authors Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler say the amygdala is our early warning system, an organ always on high alert whose job is to find anything in our environment that could threaten us. Anxious under normal circumstances, once stimulated, the amygdala becomes hypervigilant. That's how we're wired. And this coincides with evolutionary psychology's theory that the most important question faced every day by all animals, including humans, is whether their immediate environment is dangerous or not. That's the first thing we have evolved to ask ourselves: am I safe? And this instinctive fear of new environments, of unfamiliar circumstances, and of strangers is called neophobia. Neophobia. Remember Neo in Matrix? He meant new. It means new. Neophobia is fear of the new, and is likely rooted in the rational fear of our hunter-gatherer ancestors that they had of wandering too far from the safety of the group and of going alone into untrodden territory. There's safety in numbers and to sticking to the well-traveled road, the well-beaten path. Although we don't face the same sort of threats that they faced thousands of years ago, we have inherited their neurology, which manifests as fear. The fear of the new and the fear of being alone. Feeling safer by going along than by going alone additionally requires us to convince ourselves that the crowd must be right. We accomplish this by purging ourselves of any doubt about our shared ways and beliefs, and by ridding our community of threatening outliers. In the process, we adopt a false sense of certainty that leads to a false sense of security. And they are false because there is nothing in life that is certain, not even sticking to the tried and true, which only work well until they no longer work well. Even in our liberal church, I sometimes hear people complain, but that's the way we've always done it. Or behave as if any any change, I should say, is a moral crisis, even if it's just moving the furniture. Right? We're so silly. Fortunately, this isn't most of us, but it does happen. And when it does, it's the primitive brain that's talking, not the liberal brain, not the liberated brain, not the free mind that Unitarians are supposed to be known for. In his book on being certain, neurologist Robert Burton says, certainty and similar states of knowing what we know arise out of involuntary brain mechanisms that, like love or anger, function independently of reason. Right? Certainty, the feeling of knowing that we know, functions independently of reason. That's an astonishing statement. Certainty is not the result of sound thinking. It is the result of emotion. As Burton goes on to say, the feeling of knowing and its kindred feelings should be considered as primary as the states of fear and anger. Fear, anger, certainty. Emotional relatives. In other words, when we feel sure we are right, the only thing we might really be certain of is that we are having an emotional reaction, that we are caught up in an emotional reaction, probably to something that frightens us, whether it's really frightening or not. Fear of new ways, combined with certainty of old ways, kept our primitive ancestors safer than not, which is why our brains have also evolved to reward us with a dopamine rush, a neurotransmitter that makes us feel really good when we are sure and when we exhibit repetitive behavior. Right? Our brains wanted us to survive, so they made us feel good by repeating the same patterns again and again. And that's why habits, including habitual ways of thinking, become habits. Because our ideas are addictive. They make us feel really good. We get addicted to our beliefs, to our ideas. Damn the truth, damn reality. I'm having fun. Put me back in the matrix. So to summarize what I've said thus far, we have a greater tendency to deceive ourselves than not because we prefer belonging to freedom, if we have to make the choice. Have brains that evolve to make us fearful of anything new and that reward us for feeling certain, even when we're certainly wrong. So if we are psychologically and neurologically wired for self-deception, what can be done for us to live a life of ideological integrity, or intellectual integrity, self-integrity? To answer this, let's shift gears by considering some of the mechanisms that I have found helpful in my own efforts to be more honest with myself. And based upon what I've already said, the first of these mechanisms might be self-evident. Learn to recognize the most obvious signs of self-deception, which are the feelings of fear and certainty. Fear and certainty. Thank you, Todd. Boy, you just jumped right on that. Amazing. Now, what Todd has just shown is that you have to hear this sermon twice to get it, so let me start over. So, for example, there is currently a lot of fearful thinking around the advent of artificial intelligence. And this isn't to say that there aren't legitimate reasons to be cautious about its potential misuse. As Joseph Heller wrote in Catch-22, just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they aren't after you. But fear has been important in the survival of our species, which is why it has that special place in our brains. It's there to keep us safe by motivating us to proceed with caution, right? Be cautious about AI, but proceed. But sometimes motivating us not to move forward at all, to be too scared to make progress. And this is why I often like to say, base your next leap of faith, because ultimately every decision, every belief is a leap of faith, since we cannot know everything with certainty, right? So base your next leap of faith on your best educated guess. Right? Not on faith alone, but on your best educated guess. And this means researching the evidence for certain ideas and evaluating their logic, rather than relying on our feelings to drive us toward our beliefs. But do be careful of confirmation bias, especially when you're doing your research on the internet, where we can find an argument supporting just about anything our feelings wish. Always strive to base your beliefs on reliable evidence and sound reasoning, which is the second mechanism for having ideological integrity. Always strive to base your beliefs on reliable evidence and sound reasoning. Now, logic is a skill, and it is a difficult one to learn, let alone put into practice. But the most important part of logic is really easy. And it comes natural to us. It should. Always ask, do you know the answer to this?
Why?
Why? You were here the first service too. Okay. Always ask why. Why is one of the first questions that we learn to ask as children. I was thinking about this morning, right? It's also what, right? What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? What's that? And then why? Right? So we're learning the conclusion, and then we're asking about the reasons. That's an amazing internal logic of toddlers, right? When we're just barely verbal, to be able to say what and why, what and why. That's how we should be thinking. It is also one of the first questions, however, that we are discouraged from continuing to ask by being told things like, don't question me, just do as I say, or because I said so. If you've been discouraged from asking why, I urge you to reclaim this intellectual prerequisite. Logic is also called reason for a reason, because it requires reasons for the ideas that we decide to believe. And asking why is the only means of obtaining those reasons and determining if they are sound or not. Because I said so is not a sound reason to believe something is true. As a mother, you say it is? Is there a therapist in the room? Yes, well, you know. Right, I mean, that's the thing, right? When you hear the why, eventually, because it just is, I said so. But we got to be careful not to take away our children's questions. That's a very difficult thing. When I was a young boy, there were a couple of gay men who moved into the house next door to us. And I don't know how old I was, 6, 7, 8 years old. Very nice guys. And I was always starved for affection from men because I'm diverging a little bit here, sorry. But the one of them just stayed out and worked on his car all the time. Super, super nice guy, very paternal, very fatherly, And one day my mother came out and said, you got to stay away from them. Don't talk to those guys. And I said, well, why not? She goes, just don't talk to them. And I kept asking, probably, well, why? Why? And she finally said, well, because they're queer. Now, I said, well, what's queer about them? I know nothing of anything at this point, at this age in my life, And then somehow she conveyed that they were two men who were living together like I understood a man and woman live together, right? And I said, I didn't even know that was a thing, at that age. But in answering my question why, what my mother inadvertently or advertently, I don't know, did was she removed that question from my mind for years, right? Because my mother taught me, she gave me the answer to the why. She took away the why. Well, it's wrong because it's wrong. It's wrong for two men to be together as a husband and wife, as a male and female would be, however you want to phrase it. And it took me a long time, going through the Baptist faith and all that, to realize to rediscover my question, to rediscover the why. Why? Why is it wrong? Well, it's not. So I think it's a very serious thing, when we, when we don't have an answer, it's better to say, I don't know. Model that for your kids, living in a world where you don't know, than to dismiss the question. Not to make you feel bad, Sue. We've all been there. I appreciate your jest, but it took me off in a tangent. So another mechanism for ideological integrity is learning to recognize some of the most basic logical fallacies. And there are several, so I'm only going to mention those three that I find the most common these days, including common among those on both the left and right of things. And first, especially nowadays, is the ad hominem fallacy, right? Which occurs when, rather than arguing the merits of our ideas, we simply attack the character and the motives of those who hold them. Now, criticizing Elon Musk as an unelected billionaire is one that really troubles me, for example, because it has nothing to do with whether or not his ideas are right or wrong. If we are critical of what he's doing as head of the new Department of Government Efficiency, then we should stick to the facts, or in this case, the lack thereof. Right? Despite his claims that Doge has uncovered hundreds of billions of dollars in waste and already saved billions, the agency has provided little proof, if any, that either of these claims is true, making it illogical for us to believe them. Right? We don't need to attack his character. We need to look at the evidence, which is non-existent. Attacking Musk's character to disprove these assertions is illogical, and vandalizing Tesla vehicles only proves that some people are extremely angry. But being extremely angry also says nothing about the worth of their ideas or what's bothering them. When Trump, on the other hand, plays on people's emotions, called the appeal to emotions, as he did prior to the election by making unsubstantiated claims, surprise, surprise, about millions and millions of criminals invading our country, and that he is the only person who can prevent World War III and nuclear holocaust. Or as he is doing now, claiming that his tariffs will make us all wealthier than we can possibly imagine. He is playing on our feelings, on our worst fears, and on our greatest hopes. And these claims are also illogical because he seldom, if ever, gives us any reasons for why we should believe him. He just makes proclamations, which makes them illogical to accept. Another common fallacy is raising a straw man, a quick and sometimes unnoticeable switch from the argument at hand to a similar argument that's easier to win. And we see this with pundits all the time, or people being interviewed in the news. They don't stay with the question, they go find another problem or something. In Trump's now infamous attempt to manipulate Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky during his visit to the White House is a really good example. Now, based upon what transpired before their meetings, and when somebody says based upon, this is a sign that I'm about to give you my reasons. I'm about to tell you why, my reasons for the conclusion that I will draw from them, right? So I'm not giving you an opinion here, but I'm giving you the reasons for the statements to follow. So what transpired before their meeting was he had conversations with Vladimir Putin, positive praise for Vladimir Putin after those conversations, while blaming Zelensky for the war, for starting the war, and calling him the authoritarian, along with statements about obtaining Ukraine's mineral rights. It is thus logical to conclude that Trump wanted to convince Zelensky to accept Putin's terms, which meant ceding the territory Russia has already taken and agreeing to never join NATO, and in exchange for Trump arranging this great deal, give the U.S. half of the country's mineral rights. That was what was wanted. We can conclude this pretty soundly by the evidence that we all saw in advance of that meeting. But during the meeting, he simply asked Zelensky if he wanted peace and to save millions and millions of lives. Right? That was the question. Don't you want peace? Hey, you want peace, don't you? You want to save millions and millions of lives? Who can say no to that? Right? Yet when Zelensky did not take the bait, Trump and VP Vance pounced on him with ad hominem attacks. None of this was rational. None of this was logical. And if you learn these simple fallacies, you'll spot them. And there are plenty of other fallacies, but for now, I would just say, learn to see these fallacies around you. Maybe that's the easiest way to start, but it's more importantly to learn to see them in yourselves, in your own thinking. And that's really what logic does for us, is makes us better thinkers, gives us intellectual integrity. So learn the fallacies and learn to find them in your own thinking. And this leads to another mechanism for avoiding self-deception. Explore the merits of those ideas that you most disagree with. Consider the ideas that you feel hostile towards. We all have a primitive instinct to automatically disagree with the ideas that are on the other side of an issue, the other side of our own beliefs. Republicans automatically disagree with almost anything a Democrat says and vice versa. And this is true of liberals and conservatives in general around the world. Yet I have spent some time recently listening to a few conservative investors and economists whom I respect about the potential value of tariffs, trying to understand the thinking behind them and even the history behind them, and the once very important place and role that they played in the economy of this country a long time ago, before the world was as open as it is and as connected. And although their arguments do not convince me, I considered them with courage and with respect and with openness, and now I do have a new appreciation, as I said, for the role of tariffs, for the purpose of tariffs. I've also read and listened to the voices of those on the left who are critical of the left. And I'm not afraid of changing my mind if that's where the evidence leads. Rather, I am eager to evolve and to discover ways to improve my own thinking. Who would not want to do that? I don't want to be in the matrix. Life's too short. I want to become a better thinker, to understand better than I do now. And now finally, getting back to the persona, the mask that we wear in public in order to secure our place in society, I offer a final mechanism for avoiding self-deception. Don't sweat the small stuff, but be brave about the important stuff. As I said, we are always trying to juggle between the competing need for freedom and belonging. In order to belong, we need to compromise, which means not always getting our way, not always saying exactly what we think, and sometimes having to set aside our own desires and wishes. Learning to give and take is part of what it means to be in a community. Not always getting our way. It's what it means to be in a healthy relationship. But when it comes to important matters, like our integrity and adhering to our core values, we need to express ourselves, even at risk of offending others and finding ourselves estranged and ostracized. Just be careful not to inflate the small stuff into big stuff out of pride and selfishness. The matters we stand up for and stand out for ought to take real courage and selflessness, because our own comfort and welfare might be put at risk in the process, and because we do so for something greater than ourselves, like the universal values we uphold and the welfare of others. That's when we take it off. Because we have to suffer the consequences of doing what we believe is right. We are wired to fear new ideas in new ways, and to go along with the crowd and not wander too far into unfamiliar territory. That's the belonging part of our psychology. But we are also driven toward freedom and exploration and discovery, which is why our species now inhabits nearly every climate on the planet, and has even traveled into the crushing depths of the sea and into the lonely emptiness of space. That's the part of psychology that takes courage. Just as it takes courage for us to live a life of intellectual integrity by doing our best not to deceive ourselves. So be brave, think well, and discover the world's many wonders. Thank you. Let's see, why don't we just go into our benediction and shalom, since we're running a little bit over and lunch is smelling pretty good.
All right. Let's rise and find each other.
Oh.
And after sorry, no, do it. Go ahead.
As we prepare to go out into the world, let us carry with us this quiet challenge: to keep striving to be the people we say we are. The philosopher and psychoanalyst Erich Fromm wrote, "Integrity simply means not violating one's own identity." May we each be brave enough to ask, "Who am I when no one is watching?" And may our actions match the answers we give. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
alone.